Liberalism. Section. The enduring effectiveness of the Black Revolution from below. But if things stood thus, how is the abolition of slavery achieved? Although firmly opposed by a formidable international coalition and the liberal movement as a whole, the San Domingo Revolution had a lasting influence, which proved all the stronger when conflicts within the community of the free and the white community as a whole intensified. We already know the decisive role played by the country governed by ex-slaves in propelling the independence movement in Latin America towards abolitionist positions. Outside the southern United States, slavery continued to be very much present in the European colonies in the Caribbean. However, here too, Haiti's presence made itself felt. Proceeding in 1822 to the annexation of the Spanish part of the island, the ex-slaves, now in power, delivered a further serious blow to the institution of slavery. The following year, the revolt of the black slaves in Demerara, today's Guyana, erupted. This was a colony that had been affected by the upheavals which had reverberated in San Domingo from France. In 1794 to 95, a revolution exported and imposed by French forces had transformed Holland into the Batavian Republic and forced the Prince of Orange to flee to England. In the wake of events in Demerara, at the time under Dutch control, liberal agitation had developed, promoted by slave owners who, witnessing the emergence of the prospect of black emancipation on the San Domingo model, had rapidly abandoned any sympathy for France and sought Britain's intervention and protection. But the incorporation of Demerara into the British Empire did not extinguish the fire, which smoldered under the ashes. A black revolt broke out in 1823 and led to the death of 3 whites. Martial law was proclaimed, and 250 slaves were killed or executed. And yet, repressed in one place, revolts exploded again some years later, and only a short distance away. This time in Jamaica in 1831. In both cases, Methodist and Baptist missionaries played a significant role. By converting the slaves to Christianity, they furnished them with a culture, consciousness, and the possibility of meeting and communicating that clashed and irreconcilably with the dehumanization and commodification of human livestock upon which the institution of slavery was based. The first revolt saw the death sentence for the Reverend John Smith, and his death in prison shortly before execution of the sentence, and the arrival from London of a notice of pardon. The second became known as the, quote, War of the Baptists. In both cases, in addition to rebellious slaves, the repression by the white dominant class struck the Baptist and Methodist community. In Jamaica, hundreds of black Christians were flogged, tortured, or shot, and English missionaries also suffered arrest and humiliation of every kind. In fact, in neighboring Barbados churches were sacked and destroyed, and there were riots and attempted pogroms against the Methodist community. The colonists' hatred of the nonconformist churches, accused of encouraging the slave revolt, could not be contained. It was a danger that seemed all the more real and immediate because of Haiti's proximity and the processes of emancipation underway in Latin America. Thanks to this geographical proximity, there now intervened in the struggle, wrote a white Jamaican to his governor, a, quote, third party, in addition to the Crown, prompted in a reformist direction by Christian abolitionism, and the colonists, engaged in defense of self-government and their property. And this, quote, third party, comprised the slave who, quote, knows his strength and will assert his claim to freedom. At this point, the abolition of slavery in the colonies presented itself to the dominant class of liberal England as the requisite way out in the face of 2 challenges. The first consisted in the black slaves' revolution from below. The second in the indignation that was widespread in the British Christian community, which, with growing impatience, demanded decisive measures against the colonists, guilty of enslaving blacks and persecuting Christians. End section.